Hey guys, and welcome back to the Heroes Hype Amateur Series Week 14. I am Gillyweed, and joining me in this cast is Anna.
Hello.
I was like, she's muted.
Nope, I didn't say anything. It doesn't count. Is it week 14 already? This is awesome. This is the Heroes Hype Amateur Series. If you're just tuning in, really awesome community around Heroes Hype. People who like to hype up heroes, do all sorts of things in the community. One of them is this amateur series where amateur teams are welcome to practice their skills, show off their skills for anyone who might be scouting them, and also give opportunities to people like Gilly and I to practice our casting skills.
Yes, definitely. We are so thankful for that. And of course, I'm very thankful that Heroes Hype is starting to do even more in the community as well. If you guys haven't heard, they are starting their EU Amateur Series. It's another weekly series they'll be doing, and it's going to be on Friday. And that will be during the day on Friday because, of course, well, for us in the NA scene, that is. It'll be in the evening for the EU team. So that's going to be really fun. I'm really pumped, too, because I get to cast the first one, and it'll be with Kendrick Swish, who is in EU caster, also makes fantastic content too, so that's going to be really, really fun to do. And then also, next week, this amateur series is going big, Anna.
How is it going big, Gilly?
Well, we're going to have a $300 prize pool for the amateur series as a way to thank these teams who have been with us every week and also just hype up. Guys, it's the end of beta. Our game is going to the public. That's so crazy. It's awesome. And so we're going to have a really cool, fun end of beta finale for these teams.
And the $300 actually is thanks to you guys, because a lot of you are also people who watch Eye on the Storm, which is our talk show that we have on Misclicks every Thursday. And we were able to, thanks to you and your support, win one of the Blizzard Stream Awards. And we used that money to invest back in the community. 300 of it is going to that prize pool. So we hope you enjoy.
And more of it will be going to an undisclosed but super awesome thing that we'll have for you very soon. But in the immediate future, we have a game coming up and a draft already started.
And the draft is crazy, Gilly. Show it to them, show it to them, show it to them.
All right, well, we're on Tomb of the Spider Queen with bands of Kerrigan and Jaina. So basically, you and me, as we love them. Though I think the Brightwing would be even more apt. But we've got bans on Kerrigan and Jaina. Wild Growth choosing to first pick Kael'thas, and now following up with Vala and Muradin. Meanwhile, Flick of the Wrist have Uther and Sylvanas.
This is going to be the first game that I've ever casted with Kael'thas. Have you casted many?
I've casted... we didn't have him in last week's? Was he
No, we didn't have him last week.
I think I've only done a couple with him, but he is... he's bursty. He does a lot of burst damage, and he can also clear lanes really well, but it's just something you always like on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Remember, you need to clear the lanes really quickly so that you can be able to pick up the gems, and eventually you'll turn those gems in to have web weavers pushing down your lane. But Flick of the Wrist saying, all right, you can have Kael'thas, whatever. We've got the Anubarak and also Falstad.
Interesting. So we've got Sylvanas with the push ability. We've got Falstad for all sorts of damage and mobility. Uther for stunnage. What is Anubarak going to bring to this team?
Anubarak deals a lot of damage for a tank. And because of that, he sacrifices in terms of he's a little bit squishier. But if it doesn't matter if you are taking out 3 people before you possibly die, you know? And on top of that, he's got a very high win rate right now because his abilities and his beetles have been changed a little bit to make him just a little bit better and easier to play. He does also have a shield, but I think the biggest amount of his utility is that he has a great engagement in terms of his burrow charge, and then 2 of his abilities also offer stuns.
Yeah, you've also got Uther on Flick of the Wrist as well, who is very tanky for a support. So they're keeping in mind that they're going to need to put some beefier guys up in the front to help Anubarak take all the damage. We see Wild Growth picking up. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. We saw Muradin, got a Rhaegar, but what I'm really excited about is that Zagara. She's great on this map and also one of my favorite heroes.
She is so fantastic on this map. This is a map that has 2 turn-in points, and it's very difficult to know whether your opponents, if you're wanting to stop your opponent's turn-in, you pretty much have to make a split-second decision. Like, okay, maybe they're at top, let's go top. Oh no, crap, they're at bottom. Now they've already turned in and gotten their web weavers. Her creep, especially when building into the creep, makes it so easy for you to have a great just spread of creep across the entire mid of the map, like middle, just split it down vertically, and then you are able to see both of the turn-ins, and you can capitalize on that and stop the turn-ins a lot more effectively.
Absolutely. Really excited to get into this game. Did we mention I don't know if we mentioned the Zeratul. I got excited about Zagara and started thinking about what she was going to do. But Zeratul is going to finish out Flick of the Wrist. We're going to probably see some, do you think we're going to see the Void Prison into Hinterland Blast, Gilly?
I think they're going to try, and that is a little bit more of a difficult one in terms of timings to hit sometimes, but I'm sure Flick of the Wrist have practiced it and are prepared. What I'm interested in seeing is, with that, what Anubarak is going to choose here, as well as Uther. Whether or not Uther will choose to do a Divine Storm or Divine Shield just to make Anubarak a little bit tankier, but a Divine Storm off of the Void Prison could help them get a little bit more of a wombo. But yeah, on the same side, like Anubarak has that Web Blast or that Locust Swarm for his heroics, and it will depend if they're going to try to just be really good at zoning by having Void Prison and the Web Blast in place to be able to just make sure that they always have somebody out of the fight when they engage, or if they're going to be going for damage with those Locusts.
Yeah, there's a lot of utility that they've got with this team that they can kind of make one way or the other, which is going to be cool to see whether they can kind of trick Wild Growth or not let them know what to expect. What do you think is going to characterize the play of Wild Growth with this team composition where they've got major damage from Vala and Kael'thas, as well as a strong tank in Muradin, a great vision specialist with Zagara, and then the healer that we know can support the whole team in Rhaegar? What do you think is going to characterize their play?
Well, when it comes to team fights, I think we could definitely see them playing off of the Devouring Maw. Zagara can drop a Devouring Maw, and then from there, Muradin can come in with Avatar, which we most often see, although Haymaker, I mean, it's the Playmaker, it's so much fun. But I think we'll see him going in with Avatar, which means that he'll be able to stun people that he hits. And then from there, Kael'thas and Vala can throw a ton of damage. Sometimes we even see Devouring Maw into that Rain of Vengeance. So they're just so stun-locked that then Kael'thas, of course, can drop a ton of stuff, maybe even a Pyroblast if we're extremely lucky. But while we're waiting for that, why don't we go ahead and introduce these teams? Do you want to start with Flick of the Wrist in blue?
Sure, looks like they may have switched colors on us, so don't be fooled. It looks like we are going to have Schooled on Sylvanas, E-Dubs on Uther, Shales playing Zeratul, Tals on Anubarak, and Radlac will play Falstad.
And for Wild Growth in red, Collusion's playing Muradin, Forest is on Zagara, Jimmy's playing Rhaegar, Jordo is on Kael'thas, and playing Vala is Zox.
Looks like we have some interest in the bottom turn-in zone down here. It's a great place to hide, as well as a great place to turn in gems. So it looks like Wild Growth was trying to hide down there, maybe grab a gank, but they were unsuccessful. We're going to settle for 3 members in the mid lane here. Looks like E-Dubs, Tals, and Shales from Flick of the Wrist are going to contest. We will have a party lane going on mid, while Falstad and Vala are in top, and Sylvanas and Zagara battle it out over the bottom lane.
Yeah, I think often we see the party lane with mid being able to go back and forth between top and try to pick out a gank where they can, but then on bottom is generally where you will have your best split or your best solo laner, which is why we have Zagara. And I actually missed the Falstad kill. Were you able to see that?
Yeah, there was a great stun there that allowed those 2 damage dealers to just wail on it. When you have Vala and Kael'thas being able to hit you and you can't move, there's not a whole lot you can do. So great stun there, I believe from Collusion was able to take him out.
Alright, well Radlac is already flown back. That's one nice thing with that fast respawn timer and the flight. He's already back, but now Zagara's gone down as another counter, this time coming from Flick of the Wrist, coming around and being able to gank. But now Collusion and Jimmy are after Schooled. Jordo taking a bit of damage, gotta watch out. Kael'thas is very squishy, and Tal's coming in with a great burrow charge actually going to help them take out Kael'thas. So their gank not having the effect that they maybe wanted.
Yeah, at this point in the game, when you've got 4 versus 3, no matter which heroes it is, you might feel a little bit threatened. So the movement, the rotation of Flick of the Wrist there really coming into play. Like you mentioned, these lanes are so close together, you'll see a lot of movement between them. Maybe a little bit more confusing, a little more crazy, and as Blizzard calls it, the knife fight in the closet kind of feeling that you'll see on this map.
Man, I am really interested in Zagara's first talent choice. Centrifugal hooks, banelings traveling twice as far before exploding. I guess maybe going for more of a siege, but you sacrifice that increased regeneration on creep.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder, I mean, if maybe she feels really safe with Rhaegar there, maybe it was a misclick as she goes down again. We wonder if maybe that was the right choice.
Yeah, that was such an epic blink there from Shales on Zeratul. Blinked right in the way, just causing a body block just long enough so this team could capitalize on that and take her out. And they lost a lot of gems for that. Zagara had quite a few as she was the only one picking them up in the mid lane, or the bottom lane.
Yeah, I mean, they've got two really solid damage dealers, so I'm still thinking about those banelings, why Zagara might have gone for those. Looking for maybe some siege? I don't know, but I guess we'll see it play out as Jimmy is now in trouble. Shales and Schooled hot on the trail will not be able to grab Jimmy as he has all sorts of escapability and is able to throw down that slowing totem. Forrest now going to join in the mid lane. Schooled is there. And, I mean, they don't stay anywhere long. Moving all over the place, we see some turn-ins up at the top. Looks like Flick of the Wrist has about, well, not going to have any more. Uther is going to get stunned. And is going to have to retreat, but they've got 23 gems turned in, while, unfortunately, Wild Growth has yet to turn in any gems.
Yeah, they haven't been able to turn in any yet. They do have quite a few on their heroes, but despite having the Zagara and the Vision, they're still not quite catching the turn-ins yet, and it might be that we don't... I bet we'll still see that creep pick at the level 7 talents that will help spread the creep a little bit easier, but I think for now they're just trying to get enough vision. Now they do get a great stun on top of Zeratul and will instantly be able to take him out. So that will help them at least get back up close to their opponents in terms of experience, as they're both getting very close to those level 7 talents.
We're seeing really cool expanding and contracting action from Wild Growth, where we see Collusion, Jimmy, Jordo, and Zox all going together for one moment, coming together, taking someone out, and then expanding again into lanes, zoning out around the turn-ins, and being able to make sure they don't get behind in experience. Really cool.
Alright, well there are those level 7 talents. Zagara did take Tumor Clutch, so that the cooldown is decreased and the mana cost for tumors, creep tumors, is free, but did not take the level 7, instead of going for rapid incubation. So going for more sustainability. Teammates are going after these bruisers here, but meanwhile that kind of frees up the turn-in point for Flick of the Wrist a little bit, and they do get a lot turned in. They're getting very close to having those first web weavers.
Yeah, they're only 5 away, and it looks like Schooled will be able to turn those in, so the web weavers will spawn on behalf of Flick of the Wrist. They will spawn where the waves in each lane are pushed to, so Schooled and E-Dubs now falling down to the bottom lane, trying to get a little bit of push in there before the web weavers get there. All members of Flick of the Wrist looking to do the same, and their lanes are looking pretty well pushed, Gilly.
Yes, indeed. It does seem like Wild Growth maybe knew that they weren't going to be able to get that turn-in, so instead making sure they had their bruisers to help push versus those web weavers. But with the Sylvanas there, they're taking out very quickly, especially with that unstable poison talent choice. And already those bruisers are down. And this web weaver is still very healthy and pushing into mid, where it looks like we'll see the first seed from Flick of the Wrist.
Yeah, we saw Wild Growth forced to make sure all 5 of them were there in the mid lane, as all 5 of Flick of the Wrist and the Web Weaver were there. They were trying to push with their bruisers, but didn't end up doing that. As you said, they went down too fast. Now they're all having to split up in lanes, because if you ignore one lane, the Web Weaver will just keep on damaging it until you get there to contest.
Flick of the Wrist were able to take out both turrets on bottom, and then they're going to move away. That's often what we see with these early web weavers, is just going after the turrets and then backing away so that you don't get caught into an unfavorable position while trying to siege into the fort. And now they're going to pick up the turrets here as well. Remember that turrets give quite a good bit of experience, so with that they're able to just get closer and closer to level 10 abilities, which will help them be able to maybe take a team fight if they can do so on that, or at least keep their lead.
Yeah, Zox on behalf of Wild Growth holding on to 20 gems. So only 8 turned in for Wild Growth. They're really not finding those opportunities to get in there and turn in their own gems. They're looking for one here at the top turn-in. Zox now starting to channel that. Talz and Radlock are up there with a few gems on their person as well. They're happy to, I guess, stay in the top lane, maybe not knowing what was going on there in the mid. We don't see any creep tumors around the turn-in points here.
That's exactly what I was going to note. They have kept Forrest so back that he has not really been able to put any creep tumors. They do have Farsight from Rhaegar, so they at least have that. They've got so much potential for vision, but so far, Flick of the Wrist is doing such a great job of taking out that creep as they have it that they're not really being able to know what's happening. And there's the Void Prison from Shield, but a miss from the Hinterland Blast. Kael'thas will still go down though. A great burrow in from Talz immediately. He was a little bit too far forward, and he's very, very squishy. So they at least pick up the Kael'thas, but there was the Void Prison into Hinterland Blast and a little bit of a mistiming there.
Yeah, you mentioned that's a hard one to hit, and you saw it in practice there. The timing is really tough, even if you're communicating at your best, so we'll see if they can line that up again next time, but are able to get one pick out of it. At this point, team's fairly even, both of them taking their heroics. Gilly, should we take a look at what those are?
Yeah, well, Wild Growth has picked up Avatar, Phoenix for Kael'thas, so not going for the Power Blast, instead going for a little bit the safer pick and a really good one for zoning. Also getting Ancestral Healing, Devouring Maw, and Rain of Vengeance.
And on behalf of Flick of the Wrist, we have Wailing Arrow for Sylvanas, not a surprise. Divine Shield as well, a favorite of mine. Void Prison for Zeratul. Anub'arak will take Locust Swarm, and Falstad, of course, with Hinterland Blast to complement that Void Prison. Tell me about Locust Swarm. Why do you think they made that choice, Gilly?
Well, I wanted to mention that the Devouring Maw did grab Schooled, and we saw them, they tried to capitalize on it by throwing the Phoenix on top of it, but a great Divine Shield actually helped save Schooled from being picked out there. As far as Locust Swarm, it does a great amount of damage. Where the heck is that? Yeah, it deals so much damage around Anub'arak, and so since you are often burrowing in, it's going to deal a lot of damage to all the enemies around you, and when you're going into the fray, as you will, that's something that's really nice to have. Also, it heals you for damage that's done, so you kind of want to be the tanky tank that you can't often be with Anub'arak, at least earlier on, because he is not as high in the health pool as some of those others like ETC.
We will also see a lot of situations here where it is tight quarters when you get into team fights. So having an aura of damage around you can never be a bad thing when you're clustered up with everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. So teams both very close in experience. Once again, Wild Growth doing a really good job of picking up their bruisers, but Anub'arak is on bottom picking up these Siege Giants and might go uncontested. Jordo's almost there, isn't quite going to be able to do so. Collusion is coming in with the stuns. Forrest and Jordo are there, but Talz has great escape with that burrow charge and will be able to get out. So good job from them in grabbing those Giants. They're going to retreat back. They just got a turn in as well, and now they're going to get their bruisers as well. This should be a really good push for them.
Yeah, it looks like Sylvanas is able to take care of whatever push was going on in the mid lane. So they are going to see Webweavers spawning quite far in the mid. There are all 5 members of Wild Growth looking to contest here in the bottom lane. They may make quick work of this Webweaver, but the rest of Flick of the Wrist is coming to support.
Yeah, they're very close to getting level 13, and both teams want to make sure they have it before they get into any sort of big engagement, as that does give them a talent tier. There it is for Flick of the Wrist. Should not be too far behind for Wild Growth, as they'll pick it up too. Now they're grabbing this middle Web Weaver, going to be able to take it out. Sylvanas is so nice when pushing with those Web Weavers because she can stop minions and mercenaries and even structures from being able to attack the Web Weavers, and that means that it's a little bit more difficult to take down those Weavers. And we saw that we're doing that with the 4 on top, stepping back a little bit now, but now back at it. And this means that you have to rely more on hero damage on the Web Weavers, which can be kind of hard to do because you've got a whole bunch of heroes in your way.
And we saw Vala venture down to the bottom lane to clean up whatever Web Weavers were left down there, and that meant that only 4 members of Wild Growth were left. They couldn't really engage, they just kind of had to stand around, make sure that Flick of the Wrist didn't push too far, but they were able to take down that fort. So now it will be 5 forts to 6 on behalf of Flick of the Wrist being in the lead.
Yeah, I wanted to note that a good job for both teams in terms of defending on this, because a lot of times you see more forts taken down by this point, and so both teams doing a really good job of defending the web weavers in the correct order, which is always something that's kind of difficult to try to deal with. But now they're kind of coming in. Jordo drops the Phoenix. It's a little bit out of position though. It's not really doing anything. Thankfully the timer on that is only 40 seconds, so they will have it back up relatively soon, but everyone else's heroics are up. So I think Wild Growth is just going to be content to back off here, maybe push some lanes, get some gems, and try to get another turn in.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that Phoenix is really going to be useful in those small channels where it can zone somebody out or keep them away from your team. In a large open space like that, it kind of was a little bit of a whiff because people could just kind of walk around it. Collusion now maybe getting caught out, but will be able to tank and shield enough. The Void Prison Hinterland Blast going off and is going to hit this time. Doesn't quite do enough to kill until now. Zagara will go down. Jordo, though, on Kael'thas will also fall. Now we only have Murid and Rhaegar and Vala up for Wild Growth. Collusion is going to look for an escape, and it looks like Zox and Jimmy will do so as well.
Yeah, the Void Prison Hinterland Blast, perfectly timed this time, but the real tale of damage there was that Wailing Arrow from Sylvanas. So good. It dropped health so fast on that Zagara, helped secure that kill, but then also no heals were able to be thrown out there to try to save them, and so they were able to get those 2 kills. Now, there's the far sight from Rhaegar, so Wild Growth knows that Flick of the Wrist was trying to take the boss, but they were able to take it no problem, and now they're even going to try to stop this turn-in. The one thing that Wild Growth maybe could have going for them stopped thanks to a great fly-in from Radlac.
Now we're going to see a lot of gems turned in on behalf of Flick of the Wrist as well. They're getting close to turning in again, and that's something that their opponents, Wild Growth, do not want to see. They're only 11 gems away from getting their own web weavers, but it looks like we may see blue web weavers before that.
Yeah, they're turning in, but they're also pushing here on bot, which they know they can safely do as their opponents are dealing with that boss. And now come the web weavers. So detrimental because that boss means that the lane was already pushed top. That's Wild Growth's weakest lane by far. And now they're going to have web weavers barreling down it as well. And Wild Growth don't have their level 16 talents yet, which were just recently picked up by Flick of the Wrist.
Yeah, all of them staying grouped up, which is really important here, except for Jordo, who it looks like is going to go take care of this bottom lane. It is only going to be 4, now 3 members of Wild Growth in the mid lane, maybe setting up, trying to flank. It looks like they're looking for any advantage that their positioning can give them, not being able to find it as Wild Growth is just kind of barreling down this middle lane.
Well, Wild Growth are going to try to take out those web weavers in bottom first, and then they'll probably move up to defend mid as best they can because they're already lost their towers and the gate there as well, so Web Weaver will be moving in towards the keep. Now this is a scary point for Flick of the Wrist. Not too bad because they do have those 16 talents and Wild Growth don't yet, but if they get too far forward, they could get somebody picked off as Jordo can throw a lot of damage very quickly, and there are a lot of stun potential. So you see them playing it pretty safe, staying back. They'd rather keep their advantage than risk trying to make it an even bigger advantage at the cost of losing it. But there is the Void Prison into the Hinterland Blast, which does not hit once again, and there's a Devouring Maw. We should see a Rain of Vengeance go down along with the Phoenix, which does hit. Rain is still up, it seems. Oh, it was already used. That's when it goes down. But they are on the chase. Wild Growth is going after them, trying to get some stuns down on E-dubs. Only Locust Swarm is left, but Collusion actually losing a lot of health. Will get Ancestral Heal. There's a stun on an interaction. Will go down. Jimmy will drop, though, to Zeratul.
Yeah, really interesting there and smart play from Wild Growth as they were level 15, which is one talent tier below their opponent's Flick of the Wrist. They waited until they hit that level 16 to engage, that knowing that they had to just defend until then because they would be at a disadvantage. I love that Ancestral Heal into the stun. That really, I mean, if that Ancestral Heal had not gone off and healed Muradin, I think we would have seen Wild Growth come out a lot more injured from that fight. As it is, they lost one member of their team, which is not desirable, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, unfortunately, they did lose these bruisers as well, as Flick of the Wrist were a little bit more on top of those map objectives. And Wild Growth is going to just defend this, but they do have level 16. They've got those talents, so at least there's that. And they are on the same talent tier, but They do need to get into an engagement or at least catch back up in experience somehow before their opponents hit 20.
We see Wild Growth constantly having to spread out across the lanes and defend. The benefit, the advantage, the luxury that their opponents Flick of the Wrist have is that they get to group up as much as they want because their lanes are safe. We see Shales taking on Zox. As I know what you were oohing about is that finally Wild Growth was able to get that turn in. Their Web Weavers are going to help them, but at this point Web Weavers are going to be mostly for defense on their part as opposed to being able to do much damage to structures.
Yeah, you know, we look at the structures here, and all 3 of the forts even are still up for Flick of the Wrist, so they haven't lost any of their main structures yet, and that bottom Web Weaver is already done. It didn't even get to half the map, but Wild Growth just, I guess, wanted to escort this mid Web Weaver as much as they could until they realized that their opponents were going to be heading up, and then they went to top. They would love to pick up at least a fort here, and it looks like they should be able to do so. That will help them at least get back up, caught up a little bit in experience, but they're still trailing.
Yeah, they're not at a disadvantage in terms of level, so they're not afraid to fight, but they want to make sure they have the right positioning. They could have easily been flanked there in the top lane, so smart of them to make sure that they were falling back a little bit and making sure that they didn't get surrounded. They didn't really get anything in terms of picks, but they did, like you said, manage to eke out a little bit of a success from their Web Weavers as opposed to just defending, so great play on behalf of Wild Growth there. We now see that Flick of the Wrist is on level 19, so at the end of this experience gaining phase, they will be at level 20. That will be a huge advantage, so we will again probably see Wild Growth shy about engaging. Once that happens, we may see them looking for a pick before it does. Collusion now engaging on Talls. Do you think we'll see a full-on team fight here, Gilly?
This would be the time to do it if they're going to, but they're going to disengage. The problem with engaging in is you want to before they hit 20, but at the same time, if you lose people, you're going to give them 20, and then it's a slaughter. So they're still staying pretty aggressive. They would love to grab someone if they could, and Collusion staying really far forward, but it's going to take a lot of damage, and now is stunned, getting healed up, and already the Ancestral Healer's got there's the Devouring Maw too, and the Phoenix as well. They couldn't capitalize on the Devouring Maw, but they were taking out Talon, who is now got the Divine Shield. But while he is following Forest, he's paying for it because Zeratul has gone down, and now Radlac is low, dropping. Was gonna drop the Hinterland Blast. The great stun from Collusion is gonna stop that right away. And now they've taken out Falstad and Zeratul.
Yeah, very well played there. They were looking for just the right time to engage. Now they get to fall back and turn in their gems, pulling themselves up to, looks like they will get Web Weavers again. That is really going to help them get their footing here in this game. As their opponents do approach level 20, they will be level 20 momentarily, but they've got the Web Weavers pushing, so that will keep them a lot safer than not. They're now looking for Boss. This is very risky, but it could prove very valuable if they can pull it off.
They've got a lot of damage potential, and Falstad's down for 25 more seconds, though he could fly in, but Zeratul's down too. And with the Web Weavers pushing, their opponents know that, okay, we're just going to have to deal with these as quickly as we possibly can. We see Sylvanas basically just owning the mid one all by herself. It's ridiculous before it can even get close. And now she's going to be able to take off. And the bottom one is already losing a lot of its health as well. So if they can deal with the other lanes, it means they don't really have to worry about the push on those lanes. And then they can deal with top, which is what we're seeing them start to do. But this is a really good point for Wild Growth to maybe try to grab a pick. Yeah, they're not 20 yet, but if they have the numbers advantage, that could pay off. And Flick of the Wrist knows this, they're going to get back immediately, instead going to go just make sure they can defend here, not lose any more structures, and there are the level 20 talents for Wild Growth.
This is a really great example of what makes Heroes really special, because what you can see here is a team managing to completely avoid their destruction by utilizing map mechanics. At that point, if there were no Web Weavers pushing and no boss to grab, and Flick of the Wrist were to get level 20, they would probably be able to demolish Wild Growth. That leap from Collusion!
That Dwarf Toss in there was a Wailing Arrow that did not hit, and neither did the Hinterland Blast! Oh no! This is terrible, and there goes Sylvanas. Zagara is down, though, and Zox is getting very low. This fight is getting very separated. E-Dubs is very low as Zeratul will go down, too. It's only E-Dubs and a Nubarak left. Uther is trying so hard to stay alive, but will eventually go down. And there is Towels and Collusion, the battle of tanks as one burrows away and the other dwarf tosses in to try to catch him. And now Towels, trying to get away from the rest of these heroes. They're all on the chase. The chase at least does keep them from pushing. So the longer that they chase him, the longer that he distracts them. And you see him, he's going so far up. He's even baited out a Phoenix. It does have a low cooldown, but this is a huge chase. There's no pushing happening while all of these heroes are down because they chased him so far. They will pick him up, but I don't know if that was the best option there.
Yeah, his death was inevitable, so smart play, like you said, to lead them as far away as he could, keep their attention as far as possible, but we do have a full team wipe on Flick of the Wrist. Now they're coming back up, but you never want to have that time when you're off the map. Trying to maximize the amount of time that Wild Growth also was not doing anything. They're going to fall back and take the bruisers, but it could be time that we see some pushing happening in the lanes for Flick of the Wrist. Things are kind of evening out a little bit, Gilly.
That dwarf toss over the wall was possibly the coolest Muradin play I've ever seen. He was like, I'm over here. Hello! Now I'm over here. And then the team was able to come out. That was really cool. So now we've got both teams with Storm Tier Talents. We have 3 Bolts of the Storm for Wild Growth. So really making sure that they don't get out of position. But I just have to address in that fight the fact that Void Prison hit, and then both the Wailing Arrow and the Hinterland Blast missed because and that just like took so much of the damage away, not let alone the silence that comes out from Wailing Arrow.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in that tiny little hallway where, let's pretend the Void Prison didn't go down and just Hinterland Blast did. That could have actually potentially done some damage. So Flick of the Wrist has really got to be licking their wounds in terms of pride right now.
Yep, I think you are right. And it's interesting, I really like Wild Growth's ability to stay calm in these situations, because both games at some point they've been down. Especially this game too. I mean, last game it was a little bit less so, just mainly when they lost that boss, but okay, are we gonna see Collusion? Do it, Collusion.
Do it.
Jump over the wall, they're setting up.
Oh wow, zoning them away from their towers. They're gonna look to engage and push them toward their own structures. Will it work, Gilly?
Alright, well that was a great Farsight, and there is the Devouring Mob, but there is a Void Prison too, so it's going to be a battle of the Wombos as there is the Phoenix, but Sylvanas is already down. Did get the Wailing Arrow off, which has taken Zox and Zagara low. Zagara goes down, as will Vala, but Radlock's going to pay for going after that Vala. And now it's a 3v3 situation once again, but the damage that Jordo can put out with all of those living bomb talents means Uther's already down. Shield is trying to take him out and will be able to do so, but in the meantime, Anubarak went down, and now it's Jimmy and Collusion versus Shales. I think they might be chasing him once again.
Poor Shales, now running away teamless. Jimmy will look down here at the bottom to push a little bit in the lane. Muradin cleaning up lanes as well. Nobody else is on the map, so they have some time to take care of some housekeeping. They're going to tidy up, do a little dusting.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, these fights, when everything's executed the way that they want, they're very, very close. 2 up on one side, but it's a tank and a healer, so they can't do a ton with just 1 up on the other side, who is an assassin, a sneaky one. He's going to be able to get away, but it's going to be a little bit of a lull as everyone gets back up, lanes a bit, tries to deal with the minions, tries to be the next one to get the turn in, which Wild Growth is closer to.
Yeah, interesting in that team fight, we also saw Hinterland Blast, again, not being super effective. So really putting in the forefront of our minds how Falstad can be a devastating hero, but also when not executed exactly perfectly, can be kind of a lame duck in these team fights.
Oh, Forrest getting out of position, does get hit by Wailing Arrow, but there's a great Void Prison, and that's a Hinterland Blast, but not really dealing too much damage, though. Forrest instantly goes down. There is the Locust Swarm from Nubarak, dealing a ton of damage, doing a great job zoning out that back line. And looks like 1 for 1 down, Sylvanas and Zagar, but Towels is getting very, very low. Uther doing all he can to keep him alive, as Kael'thas is the next one to go down, thanks to some great damage from Radlock, but Vala will follow too, and there goes Uther. So a 3v2 situation so far. Shales, Radlock, and Towels pretty low, Shales being the most, but of course he's squishy and Zeratul. Once again, it's just Collusion and Jimmy up.
And their opponents have 3 this time, so they are a little more scared. They're going to fall back, make sure they can get healthy, and protect their structures, protect what momentum they have gotten back in this game. We see both teams having 3 forts, 14 to 16 kills, very close in levels as well, so these teams really putting on a good show for us right now.
Yeah, now it looks like Flick of the Wrist is going to try to get their gem count up. Because the lanes were pushed in their advantage, it meant that they had to, or pushed against them, they had to go back and defend, but it also means that it's easier for them to pick up gems, which is what they're doing right now. But it wasn't quite enough, they didn't do it soon enough, as Wild Growth were able to get a turn-in with those 2 who were back up. So now the Web Weavers are going to be descending, and let's see what Wild Growth will be able to do with it.
Looks like Flick of the Wrist is focusing on taking their bruisers right now, helping them defend against these Web Weavers. The Web Weaver will push pretty far up in the mid lane, also very far in the bottom lane. Top lane is going to be kind of the last priority there, as it is quite central in the middle of the map. We see Wild Growth coming to push here in the middle lane. We will see whether there will be a response from Flick of the Wrist.
Well, there's the far side immediately spotting where they would come in from. That was a great spot there. And now the spiders are moving up toward the keep, and they're able to help assist it as much as possible. But once it gets in there, it should take quite a bit of damage really fast. And Sylvanas does help clear lanes really fast with that unstable poison. They've already taken out the top Web Weaver, and now the bottom one, or the mid one, is gone too. So no keeps yet still.
Interesting, though, they took out the bottom Web Weaver, but there are Siege Giants still pushing there, so they're going to have to deal with that lane again. Those Siege Giants doing a lot of damage and will take out this tower, potentially. Yeah, nope. Falstad being able to take them down before they do, so able to protect that, but only barely. It looks like now we will see Wild Growth falling back and trying again to take this boss. It is risky, as the rest of Flick of the Wrist is coming in to engage. Falstad is able to fly in as well.
This is really risky because this boss could easily mean game. There's the Devouring Maw and the Phoenix, but there's the Void Prison too, and let's see what they're going to do about it. They actually Void Prison out Kael'thas instead. A good move. They've lost Kael'thas, but Uther is down on the other team. There goes Zagara. The boss is getting very low. Which team will be able to get it? It looks like it might be Flick of the Wrist, as they're able to push Zox away. Radlack is Shales are zoning out Collusion. Tails is going to go back in, but dies! He dies to the boss! Oh no! And they want to get in there because it's already gaining health. It's back to half. I don't know if Shales and Radlack can deal with this. Collusion might be able to come in and stop them.
The boss is angry and cranky and does not want to be bothered, and is now full health. Was down to a sliver, and that's why we saw a Nubrak go in looking for it.
That wormhole, what was it? Oh. Schooled coming around. Collusion's like, let me kill one of you, please. You're all so low. Why won't you just die? Look at Shales, too. Shales is going to be so careful. 40 gems on him, that Zeratul. And now nobody gets boss. This is why we can't have nice things. Everybody is dead, and we're just going to have to go back and once again lick our wounds.
Shales is really going to want to get a turn in. They really want to offload some of those gems, but not willing to do it anywhere that could not be safe. So really wanting to make sure that the opposing team is nowhere to be found. The opposing team, being Wild Growth, is up here at the top turn and looking to turn in some of their own, but not going to be able to because Flick of the Wrist is going to get their own Web Weavers spawning now.
With all that's going on, of course, Zagara's just not been able to really effectively keep up the creep as much. And look at that, Radlack has started the boss, and now Wild Growth know this. They know they have to come in here, and they are going to do so. They're already coming in. The boss is half. We're going to see this once again. A Void Prison only hitting Collusion. And that might be enough, though. Actually, Forrest and Jordo going to bolt in. There is the Devouring Maw, and they steal it. They steal the boss. Sylvanas and Zeratul are down. There goes the Hinterlip Blast. But he's got to get out of there. He's so low, as is Tails, who will go down. E-Dubs also very low. There's only 2 members left, and it's Uther and Falstad. Wild Girls don't even care about these Web Weavers. They are going to push with this boss.
Ooh, we see gems lying on the ground for Flick of the Wrist. Those are some pretty hefty gems lying around to not be spent. The boss will be pushing against this top fort. We already see GG's coming down as Wild Growth pushes in toward the core and will take this semifinal round 2-0.
Man, the web weavers even took out 2 keeps, but at the end, all that matters is that you get the one so you can attack the core. That was it. GG's. Wild Growth is going to move on to the finals, and who will they face? We don't know yet.
Dude, I don't know if you guys got to see this, but the web weavers were right there on the core in the other side of the map. So a very well fought, very even match with lots of twists and turns. Very fun. Thank you to both teams.
That was an awesome, close game. There were definitely some issues with Wombos, though, and I think that in the end is the big problem is when you're going to have those types of, like, we've got to nail this here and then this right after, and like you've got to take your Void Prison down right as this hits. Like, that's the problem, right? So there's a wind up with Hinterland Blast. And if you let go of the Void Prison too soon, then they're able to, like, get away from that laser line. And so you've got to, like, let it up right at the time when it's going to drop, but not too late, because then it drops on nothing. And yeah, we saw the struggle there a little bit with that.
It was really fun to watch that final fight around the boss, too, because we saw Phoenix being placed really strategically. I thought that was really cool after having seen Phoenix placed in a couple places where we kind of thought, that could have been more effective. So really cool to see both teams kind of do some things that we weren't sure about, and in the end, really do some great plays. Also, we mentioned the Zagara, the interesting build from Zagara, not focusing as much on the creep tumors, especially kind of in the middle of the game being like, I don't have any creep tumors around the turn-in points, you know, and that's kind of the purpose of having Zagara on the map. So having to adjust the strategy a little bit there. Ultimately, though, Wild Growth being able to rally and come out on top.
Yeah, I felt like because they didn't have that creep in the turn-ins as much as we see a lot of time with that standard creep build, there were a lot more opportunities for turn-ins by a flick of the wrist. But in the end, it didn't matter too much, although it did get very close, especially since they got that last turn-in with the web weavers. But man, play of the day, IMO. It's going to be hard to beat. Kael'thas and Zagara bolting in on top of the boss and then throwing all of their stuff out at once and taking that. Because, so I saw the Void Prison went down on Collusion as Muradin, and it was long enough that he wasn't going to be able to dwarf toss in. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe they're not going to do this. But nope, they just bolted over the wall, stood there, were like, hi, have a face of fire, yay! And then dead.
And that was the ultimate YOLO play, because if it didn't work, they lost the game. The web weavers were on their core.
Oh, yeah. They had to, though, because if you had a boss pushing with the web weavers on top, that keep would go down so fast. You would have stuff on core, and if all of the members on top of that were up and pushing in, they knew they had to go for that boss. And so that was so cool. You're right, though. Ultimate YOLO for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to corner a snarling dog. You know, that's where Wild Growth was backed into a corner saying, we don't have any other option but to attack you. And they took full advantage of that, kind of tore them apart.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congrats to Wild Growth. We will either have a game from the other semifinal, or depending if they're already done, then we will move on to the finals. But we are going to take a short commercial break, maybe actually commercial this time. We'll see, who knows, it's fine. But stay with us, guys, because we'll be right back with more games for you. See you soon. But in the end, it didn't matter.